The only context that you're really given from the people that run this is like, don't get arrested, don't really talk about it, and don't break the law in order to get there.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ashley, and today I'm joined by Connie Blumenthal. In this conversation, we'll dive into her experiences in the endurance world and explore what keeps her showing up, saying yes to challenges, and embracing experiences that test her limits, including one of the most extreme endurance events out there, one that you may never have even heard of. So, with that, Connie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I wanted to share a little context for this conversation and give a shout out to PJ Relkin from Nature's Playbook, who several months ago dropped me a text with this YouTube video and had said, you got to check this out and let me know if you want to connect with Connie. And it's the video on the speed project. And being in the endurance space myself, I've never heard of this. And so you and I hopped on a call. You shared a bit more, and I was like, all right, we gotta talk about this on the podcast. So it has been a long time coming, and I know that it's been some time since you had participated in this event, but I'm excited to talk about it and hear your experience, because most people are familiar with races like a 5K or a 10K or a marathon, or even into like an ultra marathon or Ironman. And then you have the Speed Project, which is 340 miles from LA to Vegas, unsanctioned, no set course, no spectators, no rules. So I want to start there. Take us through what this event is and how you found yourself saying yes to it.
So I found out through a friend who did it back in, I think it was 2022. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I found their Instagram page. It's an invite only race. So to kind of get into it, you have to, I hate saying like be in the loop, but I messaged them, I DM'd them on Instagram and was like, hey, how do I do this? They were like, well, just like watch our page. And I kind of kept on them over several months. And finally they gave me the link to apply. And I applied with a friend in, I think like the spring of like 2023. Totally forgot that I had applied, and then got a text from a random number in September 2023 and was like, you have 24 hours to give me an answer whether or not you can do this with the team. And I was like, I don't, sure, I'll figure it out. And so that's kind of how it happened. And I ended up finding our photographers through a summit that I went to at Protect Our Winters. Um, and one of our photographers ended up introducing me to Evan, who is the other female on our team, and she is losing her eyesight. So it became much more than like just a physical challenge, like running that much distance. Also, it was making sure that she was safe, and I can go into a lot more detail there.
Yeah, would love for you to share, take us through the whole journey there.
Yeah, it was kind of, a I can't speak today, I'm sorry. Kind of like a mix of people that knew each other and, didn't. Our one crew member I knew through like my run club, and then this other guy through my run club. And then he was the one that brought these two other guys into the team. So it was six people, two females, four males. So no one really knew each other that well. We kind of didn't really know what we were getting into. We called ourselves Blind Ambition because it was both like we were going into this blindly, but also Evan is losing her eyesight. So, there was a deeper meaning there. And, the only context that you're really given from the people that run this is like, don't get arrested, don't really talk about it, and don't break the law in order to get there. And this is the way that the original people took to get there, but you can do whatever you want. So people get really creative in like cutting down distances. We just didn't have like, some people have like massive crews and, multiple vehicles like tailing them, and people who are like, doing all the logistics, like a whole crew just for that. And that was me. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so it was a lot of, like trial and error of like, okay, like looking on like Google Maps, Street View to see like, okay, can I run on this road? Does this road exist? No? Okay. So I'm just going to be running through like in the guide that we got, based off the original route. It was like, enter the barbed wire fence here. You then have to turn right and proceed for about a mile and a half before you can exit. So it was really a really fun adventure. Yeah. I guess like when you're training for something like that, it really just started running during COVID, and didn't, really do anything longer than a half prior to this race. People approach it differently. So we split into what we were referring to as pods of like three and three. So, like, 3 people would go out in the truck. One person would run for, like, X amount of time. The truck would meet them. They'd swap out runners and do that for a 60-mile, 80-mile segment. And then the other 3 would go to the RV, drive it to where we were supposed to meet the car, and then try and rest and eat and, do whatever. But it was really a lot of making stuff up on the fly. We got really lucky because we all got along really well and things went relatively smoothly. But looking back on it, I was like, "Wow, we were so unprepared." Like, that could have gone really poorly.
What were some of those obstacles that you encountered along the way that you didn't expect to happen?
Well, usually it doesn't snow or rain in the Mojave, but it snowed and rained, like, downpoured. We got about 3 inches of snow and rain in the 42 hours that we ran, which was the most that they had gotten in, like, years. So much so that part of the highway shut down, and we thankfully just happened to get past that point that shut down, but other teams got stuck for like hours. But so that was one, the weather. And because of the weather, one of our teammates got hypothermia, because we went from 80 degrees to 45 degrees and, you know, basically ice rain. So that was not the best call to get.
How do you prepare for such a drastic, you know, temperature change in that way?
Well, they all made fun of me, like, my teammates made fun of me, like, going into this because I was like, "You need to learn how to change a tire, like, you need to make sure you have, like, all of these things in case it's hot or cold," and, you know, being the daughter of an Eagle Scout, I came with everything, and in that moment, I was just like, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. So I did. Yeah, we had enough to kind of respond in that situation, but it's just kind of know what kind of weather you can expect, and just being overly prepared. It's always better to have too much than find yourself in a position where you are unsafe.
Totally. I think that's a lesson for everything, right? Where it's better to be over prepared and not have to use the resources and tools that you have than to be unequipped. So take that
Yeah.
literally or figuratively, I think.
Exactly. So, like, after that, we kind of took a, 2-hour break with everyone in the RV and we're like, okay, how do we want to like go forward with this? Like, another one of my teammates got food poisoning. And so we were really down so many people. And so it was a lot of just figuring stuff out as, this journey progressed. Going into it, I myself and one of my other teammates kind of knew that we would probably end up running the most miles. So it kind of played out how we expected, but you can't ever, anticipate someone getting hypothermia in the Mojave Desert. So
Totally.
that's definitely a lesson learned.
At any point in the experience, did you think to yourself, what did I get myself into?
No, I think I had the most fun out of everyone. And it really kind of brought to light, like this experience kind of like brought to light that like I was like, okay, maybe I should explore more endurance, races because I guess like I thrived on no sleep and like high pressure and high stress. Like I guess when I'm in those situations, I kind of know how to kind of take a back, like, step back and be like, okay, this is how we need to approach it. This is how we need to move forward. You take the next 3 hours off. So yeah, I mean, I ran literally the next day. So
What is it about going into an experience like this where you don't know what to expect and there there's a lot of unknowns, things that could happen that you didn't prepare for. What is it about that as a whole that allows you to come into it so freely and just enjoy that experience? I ask that question because I think there's a fear that could hold people back from going into something because that's the unknown. And you just shared that you think you had the most fun out of everybody in the group in doing this. So, what was it about that that allowed you to just show up and embrace the experience?
I think like I made it really clear from the beginning with my teammates. I was like, we're not going for a time. I want everyone to have, you know, an enjoyable experience. Like, yes, your body's going to hurt. You're running 340 miles. Like, I can't do anything about that. But, I want it to like mentally be a great experience for you. I want you to, make new friends. And I really took the pressure off of time because some teams do go for time and they're running like, 5-minute miles. And I was like, I just want you to have fun. I want you to enjoy it. So I think going in with like my expectations for my team was that you all respect each other. And, if someone's not comfortable with something, then you respect that and let them speak and, find a solution to that. Yeah, I guess since I went in there and I was like, I'm just going in to complete this and to enjoy my time and to be able to say that I did this pretty awesome thing. I guess that was like the headspace that I was in.
For sure. I'm curious, just I know you had mentioned some events. It was a half marathon that you had done prior to you went from doing a half marathon and jumping into something like this, which is
Yeah. And, like, I think, like, the longest segment I did was, like, 9 miles, but I ended up running about 65 miles total over the course of, 42 hours.
my question is, do you have a similar mindset when you run other events in the way of taking that pressure off and just going out and enjoying it? And that question comes from, again, going back to the like this kind of performance pressure whenever we go in with a goal of a certain time or I want to, get a PR. I know from my own experience, I miss a lot of what's happening around me and the actual experience of it. And so I love how going into the speed project and your, just mindset going into it and approach of we're going to enjoy this and we're going to take all the metrics off the table. So how can you compare in any way in terms of your mindset going into an event like a half marathon versus this type of experience?
I had a very different mindset because I usually am pretty focused on the time since, I've been training and for months and whatever. And I think that that's because I wasn't focused on that with TSP. That's why I enjoyed it. But yeah, I guess it just, depends what you want to get out of a race. And so depending on what it is that I'm trying to get out of the race, my mindset kind of changes. But I did just run a 50 miler about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, I just want to finish this.
Didn't have that one written on my notes.
It was like a last minute. I kind of like, I work with like the race director, like doing some other stuff. And they were like, you really should just sign up. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. And, I really liked it. I finished it and, immediately told my parents, like, I'm really sorry. There will be more of these in the future. And as I was, driving to the, you know, expo like the day before, I was on the phone with my mom and she's like, well, where are you going? And I was like, I have that race tomorrow. And she's like, I didn't think that you were serious. And I was like, no, I'm serious. It's happening.
So what is it about these kind of races that afterwards you're like, yeah, I'm doing more of this. I want more of this.
Yeah, I think like, for road races, it's the time. And that was kind of all that I had to compare it to until I had these other experiences. And now it's like, well, I can go explore like a really cool place and see like all these beautiful places and, do something that's really challenging.
It's interesting because and I have not done these kind of very long. I say I'm the queen of the half marathon distance.
It is a great distance.
It's a great distance. It's the one I keep coming back to. And the marathon that I was training for got canceled by COVID. And since then it's been back to the half marathon. But you know what it's like when you are at those type of marathon events and you have all the crowd support and the spectators and it's a whole big production of it. It's a whole event weekend
Mhm.
basically. For me, I love that because I love that kind of support and the energy, and you feel that. But then when you go and you do some of these other races that are longer distance, and then also going back to the, LA to Vegas trek, you're just out there. There's no crowd support. There's no you have your people, and I imagine your own, community of support. So what is it that inspires you so much to keep pushing you through the miles whenever you're out there solo in a lot of it?
Nerds, clusters, and beer. No, that's part of it.
That's right. I did learn that too.
It's like a really unhealthy obsession. Um, yeah, like the way I fueled for, you know, speed project and this 50 miler, I literally ate like a toddler. It was, you know, a very different animal because you have to be eating like, real food, which I kind of did, but that's a different conversation. It's for me, it's like just as much like the physical battle of like, okay, how can I push myself? And maybe it's because, yeah, sure, I take a little pride in like being able to endure pain, but that's not really like what fuels me. It's
Hey, this is the endurance diaries,
like you kind of get into this like meditative state where like for the 50 miler, like and for speed project, I didn't listen to music at all.
a whole nother level of respect right there.
Well, if you asked me to do that for like a half or even like a 4 mile run, you couldn't pay me to do that. Um, and I think it's because I don't know what it is in my mind that it's just, looking at your surroundings and you also have to be so much more aware because you're dealing with wildlife, you're dealing with, rocks and stumps and I saw a bear and then I almost ran into a deer. And so you really have to be aware. And I think because there's so much more awareness because of everything that's going on around you, that kind of like propels you forward a bit. I guess that's, I didn't ever find myself bored during either like TSP or the 50. And I think it was because I was just enjoying like being out in nature. Same with like, long hiking, like longer hikes. It's just, finally having that calm and like quiet and just letting my brain do its thing without, you know, other noise becomes kind of like peaceful.
For sure. I definitely can relate to that on a much smaller scale in the sense of, just what that does. I think connecting with nature and being out there and hiking, I think that's why a lot of people enjoy the outdoors in those ways too. Whether you're doing an extreme endurance running event or you're just going for a walk, but it's something about that experience I think that is, yeah, peaceful and you're able to disconnect from everything else. So through your running experiences and doing these kind of events, are there any kind of things that you've learned throughout those processes that has influenced the way that you approach other challenges?
Yeah, I think like, on a basic level, it's, being like, okay, well, you ran through the desert in the middle of the night, terrified. You can send this email. That's not the best example, but I think it's, small things like that.
Sending emails is hard sometimes, honestly.
You can go to the grocery store. It's not that hard. There are certain things like that. I think, there's definitely discipline behind it. And I think, you know, probably part of that discipline comes from like I grew up dancing. I did ballet pre-professionally. I think between like, running and ballet, you get really good at time management. And so, you know, both of those activities have taught me how to like use my time wisely and also like, what is worth my time. Not because I think that like, I'm so important. It's more like what do I personally find how I spend my time to be useful to myself, if that makes any sense. So like it's like I want to constantly be like learning and mentally stimulated. And I guess that's kind of how it's
Yeah.
showed itself in daily life.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, and I love how it those kind of experiences also help, in that way, and kinda increasing your own awareness in how you wanna be spending your time and on what for you. So I love that.
I was just gonna say, I think like, the road versus like trail communities are very different. I'm doing the New York Marathon and like I have to be on like a 5 a.m. bus, but I don't even know when I start versus like I showed up to a 7 a.m. race at 6:58. People were drinking beer. Like I was handed a beer at the finish line. Like, um, you know, they're very different communities and supportive in different ways, which was kind of like, pretty interesting to see play out.
And it's cool that you experience both, and it's almost like it's like these subcultures, I think,
Yeah,
within the sport.
exactly.
It's fun because I think that community aspect is really important too, and, when you kind of immerse yourself in these different communities, you learn about it and you're like, "Okay, well, I'd rather wait till I cross the finish line to drink a beer," whereas, it's just in some events, you're just on the course, right? Or like you go
Yeah.
and, it's not for I mean, maybe it's for me. I don't know, I haven't tried it yet.
I think you'd like it. It's like you take the pressure when you take like the time pressure off and you're just like going to do it for fun. I mean, like I had so much fun. Like it didn't feel hard. And maybe I just got really lucky with like how everything played out that day, which I definitely is a part of it. But you should try it.
I love that, what you said about when you take the pressure off, it doesn't feel hard in a way, and how that just allows you to go out and have fun and enjoy it. Because I've been trying that for the last run that I did in May. It was a surprise, another half marathon. But it was back in Pittsburgh, and it was the first time that I ran without my watch, and I didn't have a time goal, and I got my best time there. And it was really an awesome experience because I embraced everything. There was people that I saw along the course that I even stopped with and, snap a selfie. I didn't have any alcohol along the way, but but still, it was just to your point, I think it allows you to just like freely perform and enjoy it. And I have these kind of memories from that. And I compare it to some other events that I've done where I've tried to PR and I have, but also that was my goal. So it goes back to what you had said before about whatever you do it for is ultimately going to be your reward. And it doesn't mean that it's good or bad, but if you're going after a time goal and you get that, well, then, yeah, you get your time goal, but maybe that's it. But if you go in and your goal is to just have fun and enjoy it, maybe you'll have more stories to tell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It was like I kind of had this realization during like the United Half last March. And I was like,
Oh my gosh,
they
Connie,
o-
how many races have you done?
I feel like that like really annoying person that's like, oh yeah, and I did this.
I thought I'd done my homework then
I
last year.
just got a bib like less than a month ago. But
That's awesome.
yeah,
Congrats.
no,
That's
I've done United Half like I guess this was like this past year was my fourth year, but I was running through Times Square and I was just like, they only shut down Times Square twice a year, for New Year's Eve and for the half. And I was like, I'm just not present right now. Like, this is actually really cool. If I wasn't so focused on the fact that, I want this to be over, I would actually be like taking in the moment. So, yeah, it's, something to, you know, said for taking your watch off and, or just, being present and going in with, a different mindset.
it's really yeah, when you think about it in that way, like when you think about New York as like the capital of the world, right? And
Yeah.
then Times Square, like you said, only shutting down twice a year, once for New Year's and once for this event. And you're like, I'm in it. Yeah, I just think in those moments, like to just, like you said, like just shifting, can I be present in this moment? And so often we're like focused on all the other things that we miss what it is that's right in front of us and that what it is we get to be a part of and how you can take that then into your next walk outside where I have my AirPods in, I'm listening to music. I have this noise cancellation turned on so that I'm not aware of my surroundings, which is not very smart. I think there's something to just like looking up, right? And seeing what's around you and being part of the environment that you're in because I think we can get so lost in the thoughts, so lost in like all the other things and forget where we are. I'm curious your thoughts on that too. What is that like for you in the sense of really feeling just connected to yourself?
I think like I'm definitely my most authentic self when I'm like on a trail. And that's, where I feel the most comfortable. And so it's almost like a different, I don't want to say different personality, but it's just a comfortability with just being there and knowing like, okay, all I have to do is put one foot in front of the other and take in like the beauty around me. In this past trip that I went on, there were just multiple moments where it kind of like hit me that I was like, wow, I'm so lucky to be able to do this and to have a body that's like able to do this because maybe it was, as I'm getting older, realizing like, oh, I'm not going to, I know I'm many years away from that, but like, having that realization of like, well, I'm not going to be able to do this forever, which is why you need to like maximize your time now. That's kind of how I view it. And my partner is very kind to agree to our whereabouts and adventures.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a great perspective to have because, yeah, we're not, I mean, we're all growing and we're not getting any younger. But I think when you realize that and you say, okay, I'm able to do this now, and it's like it's a gift to be able to move our bodies, to be able to, consume healthy foods and fuel our bodies in the way that we need to and to show up in that. So, and it's like a gratitude practice.
Yeah. It's like I enter like a different headspace just like automatically. And I think it's, when you don't have like, the distractions of your phone. And,
Yes.
this trip that we went on was we were gone for 3 weeks. And, 2 of those weeks we basically like didn't really have any cell service. And I love it. And you kind of just get used to being in, I don't want to say like your own head, um, just like having more in-depth conversations and, connecting to the people around you. It's just like a very different sort of culture. And I think that's probably why I keep turning to the mountains.
Yeah. How much more can we connect with others, connect with ourselves whenever we're truly in the moment? So I love that. Well, cheers to the next adventure for you. Many more to come, but I appreciate you being here and joining and being part of the podcast and sharing some of these stories and your perspectives. And it's really inspiring to hear how you continue to embrace, new challenges and experience those kind of moments. So
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, as I try and figure out what continues to fuel me.
there's endless possibilities and discovery. So excited for what's ahead and follow along